Hello, everybody. Welcome to this podcast. What date are we on today? We are on the 8th of August, 2017. Can't believe we're in August already. I was due to do this podcast last week, but I decided to take a few days off because the kids have broke up from school now. So I needed to spend a bit of time with them. I only get to see them every other weekend. So I figured out that I'll take a couple of days off and chill out with the kids and do some stuff, and it's been good. But obviously there's still things that need to be done, which is what I'm cracking on with right now. And the first thing I wanted to do was a podcast. I've been itching to do a podcast because I want to make sure that I keep doing a podcast every week for you. I just don't want you to get bored of hearing my voice or hearing my stories or anything like that. But it's really good to get things off my chest. It's really, really good and exciting to talk about what I have done because that leads on to me doing further things which I can talk about in the future, which is it's all awesome. So what's been going on? What did I want to talk about today? Well, I didn't actually know. When I sat down, I thought, what am I going to do a podcast on? What's the topic going to be? And I've been dying to speak to somebody and do like kind of like a radio interview. I want to do it with somebody. I keep going into the Discord chat and I'm talking to people. There's a couple of people that are interested in it. Just somebody to bounce off, somebody to talk about a few things in relation to Clickteam Fusion and game development in general, because obviously the first couple of podcasts that I did, listening back to them, they were all right. They were all right podcasts. When you're doing it alone, it's not an easy task. I don't ever go off any kind of notes or anything like that because that's just not me. When I used to work on radio all them years ago, when people were doing links, they call them links in radio. I don't know what they call them in any other country, but over even the UK, we call them links. So basically, when the end of a track's coming up and you want to talk over it, that's called a link, because what you're doing is you're providing a link between the last song and the next song, or the last song and the commercial break. So you're providing that link in between. So we call them links. And when I worked in radio, a lot of high profile radio jocks, they would write down what they were going to talk about in their links, so they knew what was so they didn't basically trip over what they wanted to say live on the radio. Because when you're working live on the radio, I mean, some of the stations I've worked at, they were national, regional. You can't afford for what they call dead air. And I'm actually holding my fingers up here doing quotes. It's actually called dead air. So if you're listening to a radio jock and all of a sudden you hear this, that's dead air. Even if it's just for 2 seconds, it's dead air. Radio stations, commercial radio stations, don't want dead air because it's bad for their image. It's bad for advertisement. It's bad for a whole host of things. So the last thing you ever want to do is come across a moment where you get a period of dead air. So a lot of jocks tend to write down what they're going to say in their links. They won't write down the whole spiel. It's not like they're going to write down a paragraph of what they're going to say. They'll just put little notes on the screen. There was one guy, John Pye, that I used to work with. He used to just scribble a note down on a bit of paper, and he knew what he was talking about, and it would keep him on track. And when you're doing the links on the radio, it's a lot different to podcasts. I know that. You've only got so much time to speak because they're so highly produced radio shows for analog radio and digital radio now, that you don't have much time to speak. You need to know what you're going to say. But yeah, what I'm trying to get at is I never worked like that. I always had the program director coming in and say, Danny, you should write down your links. And I don't want to write down my links. The best way for me is to let it flow. Thinking about this, it actually wants me to make me. I actually want to listen to some of my old radio shows, because there's nothing better than listening to yourself, not in a vain way. But just to see, you're always learning all the time. You are always constantly learning, no matter what you're doing, what field you're in, what market you're doing. When it comes to being creative, and radio, being a radio presenter is a form of creativity in my eyes. A lot of people take the piss out of them. You've got the face for radio, you can't work on TV and all this kind of stuff. But it's a creative job. It's a very creative job. You're providing entertainment, you're providing a voiceover, you're providing advertisement, and you're providing an image for the station as well, all in one shot. It's not an easy job, but it can be as easy as you want it to be. And I just think that's very important. So when it comes down to these podcasts, I don't actually know what I'm going to talk about most of the time. Sometimes I'll have a quick think before it and I think, what am I going to talk about? What do people actually want to hear me talk about? And I will talk about anything. If I see some suggestions, about what to cover in future podcasts, I'll crack on and cover them. But right now, nobody's throwing any suggestions at me, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to improv the whole thing one more time for you. But one thing that does catch my eye quite a lot is there's a guy on the forums by the name of Volnaiskra. His name's Dave, and he's from Australia. And the reason why he catches my eye all the time is because I absolutely fell in love with the game that he's working on. It's absolutely beautiful. And I just sometimes I think to myself, why? I'm just going to go straight in here and say it, that why are people not finishing their games? And there's a couple of reasons why that happens. If you don't know what his game is, by the way, which you should do, it's called Sprike. If you Google Sprike, he's got a website on it and everything. But yeah, wow, it's fantastically good. I hope you didn't hear that sound effect then. That was coming from the Discord channel. So I'll attend to that in a second. But yeah, so what I do want to talk about today is getting your games finished and getting them polished. Now, the stats for Clickteam Fusion 2.5 are so sporadic and buried as well. There's a lot of buried stats that Clickteam, it's kind of like they lock away sort of thing, but it's not that they're locking it away intentionally. I think everybody's just so busy with doing what they need to do for Fusion 2.5 and Fusion 3 and the marketing and the support and everything else. Stats are very important. Analytics are very important as well. So I don't know what the stats are of Fusion 2.5 and Multimedia Fusion 2 combined. I don't know how many sales that they've had or anything. I could probably find them numbers out if I tried, but I don't want to burden anybody with generating reports for me. Everybody's got everything else that they need to be working on. But if I had to take a guess, let's just say, for example, how many copies of Fusion 2.5 have been sold since 2006 when it was Multimedia Fusion 2. I mean, this is a wild potshot guess. Let's just say for this topic that it's 30,000 copies, yeah? Alright, so we're going to go off that figure, 30,000 copies. Now, 30,000 copies is a lot of copies. Let's not fail to mention the amount of copies that have been pirated, because we all know that pirating is just as active now as what it was 10 years ago, if not more. It's more rife. I don't understand why people want to pirate Fusion 2.5 when the free version is there and the only limitations it's got are limitations for exporting, end of the day, you're using a product that people are putting time and effort into. I mean, the amount of work that Eve does is insane. I think I mentioned it on the last podcast. The amount of work Eve does on Fusion 2.5 is insane. He spends a lot of hours every single day fixing bugs, and then for Joe Public to come along and say, oh, I'll use this product that you're working on for free. It doesn't matter. I'll make a game, maybe even make some money off it. You won't get nothing. I just think it's morally wrong. I mean, we all know that pirating is morally wrong. But I'm drifting off topic again. What am I talking about? See, this is why you should write your links down. But yeah, completing games. So let's go on a ballpoint figure of, let's say that it's 30,000 used. 30,000 copies of Fusion have been sold, for example. I can honestly say in the last 7 years, I've only really seen maybe 15 to 20 games that have caught my eye and I've gone, wow, this is really polished, it's really well done. And in those 15 to 20, there's probably 9 or 10 that have made a lot of money, and rightly so. They've created a product that's cool. It's people want to download and play it. Why not? Crack on, do it. But this brings me to my point. Why is there only 20 games finished that look good? I mean, don't get me wrong, there's probably 200, 300 out there, but what I'm trying to get at is the ones that have caught my eye. For example, Knit Underground, The Escapists, Five Nights at Freddy's, what else have we got? Distraint, there's all sorts. There's a few like that, and they stand out at you and you think, wow, it's such an achievement to see somebody when you're part of the Clickteam community and we're all developing games and apps. We all kind of have this incentive to help each other. I think it's just a natural thing. So when someone comes along and releases an epic looking game, you kind of look at it and go, wow, and you're so proud of their product for them. You didn't even create it. Now these guys might go off and make $10 million off this game that they've just released, but you're not bothered about the money. You're just looking at it thinking, wow, it's admiration for other users. Nobody bothers about the money. End of the day, everybody knows if you want to make money, you've got to put the work in yourself. And that's what I see happening still, but it's so limiting, and I'm trying to understand why. One of the biggest reasons why people are probably not finishing game engines off and releasing games and polishing them up is time. Time is of the essence. In the economies that we live in this day and age, nobody can afford to be messing about, as they say, and time is of the essence. Now, back in July last year, I had two choices. Well, I had four choices. One of the choices was continue, developing game engines and game apps that were taking me an absurd amount of time up. Some of them were really good engines as well, but they weren't bringing in any money. The second thing was, do I help my friend's company out painting? Painting, can you believe it? Painting buildings. But, when you've got yourself to feed, you've got a partner to feed, you've got kids to feed, you've got a car to run, you've got bills coming out of your ears, you can't afford. So I understand that, I'm going to say a good 70% of people using Fusion 2.5 do not have the time to whip, game engines together and whatever, especially if you're doing the art and the sound and the engine work yourself. It's a hell of a task. And I spent quite a few years previously trying to do that, to no avail, because it's very easy to lose morale when you're working on a project. And I'm damn well sure that there's quite a few people out there that will agree with me that you've started game projects, you've been so excited, I'm going to start this new game development, and you start working on it, and after a week you look back and you're like, whoa, I've got all this done. I can't believe I've got all this done in a week. That's the beauty of Fusion 2.5, by the way, that you can develop something within a week like that. But then after 2 weeks, it's like an exponential curve that goes down. You're finding time is hard. You can't make time. You try and make time. It's very hard, especially when you're juggling kids and a house and a partner and all that. And then money as well. Money is a massive factor in this day and age. Without money, you're not going anywhere. You're not doing anything, and you're probably going to die if you have no money. But yeah, that's what's going to happen. So everybody needs to put the pedal to the metal all the time. So I can understand that kind of angle. So we've got rid of 70% of our 30,000 there. So we understand that 70% have these issues, just like me and you. You're probably listening to it as well, probably agreeing that you have them factors in your life. But the remaining 30%, I reckon there's a few people out there that are pressing forward and doing whatever it is that they enjoy doing with the game development side of things, which I think is cool. And bringing me back to Vol Nysgra's Sprite game, I think what I'm trying to get at is I just want to see the finished product released, not because of any other reason primarily, bar I just want the guy to do well. I mean, if you look at Sprite, Google Sprite, I'll try and get the domain name up before the end of this podcast, but Google it, just take a look at how Sprite looks. It's clean, it's polished, it's unique. It's not something I've ever seen before in a platformer. The graphics are absolutely out of this world, there's just so much effort gone into this project, and I really hope that, I know that Dave's going to listen to this podcast, and I really sincerely hope that I don't know what he's got going on in his life. I don't know anything about the guy, except I know that he's got this product, this game engine, which is unique. Everybody gets envious over by looking at the screenshots and the GIF animations he provides. And I know he'll be listening, and I know he's probably going to take on board when I say to him that he needs to crack on and get that finished. He needs to get that out, because that is beauty beyond belief, and he's going to do so well with it. And I understand that things take time, artwork takes time, sound production takes time. I understand all of that. So I just can't wait for when he does finally get it released. I hope he does really, really well with it. But yeah, that brings me on to concluding this topic of, apart from Sprite, there was another game engine that Arthur H was working on. There's a guy called Arthur H on the forums. Let me see if I can just quickly find. He's made a game called Quan Armada Tactics. If you Google it, it'll probably come up. But if you check out the Clickteam forums, it's on there. It's called Quan Armada Tactics. I'll try and put the link below this podcast, but check that out as well. That is another game that's caught my eye. The graphics are polished. It's a beautiful game. It's absolutely out of this world. It's mind-blowing. But what I'm trying to get at is, to conclude this topic, is apart from Sprite and this, I do not know any others that are standing out at me. And I don't understand why. You can't tell me that two people are working on two wicked game engines out of all these people that have Fusion 2.5. I don't know whether it's lack of people not posting up their work in progress on the forums. I don't know whether it's people just really are lacking morale, or morale is diminishing as they keep working along on their projects. I'm not sure what it is, but I do hope I can find out after this podcast and get some insight into what people are actually doing. I might get surprised. I might get some comments after this podcast where people start linking me to their YouTube videos and stuff, and show me some awesome engines that I didn't even know about. But what I'm trying to say is, that I'm active around the Clickteam community every single day, 7 days a week, and yet I can only find 2 games that are striking out at me right now, which is very strange indeed. I just wish that people would complete their games for no other reason bar themselves, to make themselves feel better. I know sometimes it can be a bit of a slog. I've worked on game engines where you get to a certain point and you're just thinking, wow, I've still got this to do and that to do and whatever. Trust me, it'll be worth it. If you have to take a few days away, take a few days away, but come back to it. Don't just leave it. The amount of game engines I've got on my hard drives that I've accumulated over the years is unreal. If I had to salvage through half of those, I bet I'd be like, whoa, I can finish the rest of that off in 2 weeks, and then I could, publish it. Again, I do not have the time personally, but I don't know if that applies to everybody else. It shouldn't do. Everybody's different. Everybody has different lives. I'm just hoping, we can bring something out on there. I've also noticed that Dave has the Vol Profiler out, which when I first saw it, when I first saw the thread pop up on the Clickteam forums, because I know that Dave's been looking into researching the speed and efficiency of the Fusion runtime. Excuse me. So when I first saw it, I was like, "What's this then?" Clicked on it, checked out the description. I was like, right, okay. So I was a little bit apprehensive at first, because there's only so much you can test natively in the events. But then I realised that he had Lucky had developed him some kind of custom timer, which gives you some real-time information. And then I was like, this is quite a good little product he's got here. So I was quite chuffed to see that come to a good end. So you should check out the Vol Profiler. It's available on the Click Store, and he's also got a thread on the forums about it as well. But yeah, it's very interesting to see some of the stuff that happens behind the scenes on the Fusion runtime. Now, another thing I quickly wanted to press on was I created a blog post on the Academy last week. Let me just try and load it up as I'm talking to you. It was a free it was a free tutorial. It wasn't a blog post. It was a free tutorial under free tutorials on the Academy website, and it was 1,000 backdrop objects versus 1 active object. Now, the reason why I quickly wanted to skim over this was because what I'm stating in that free tutorial is true. However, one thing I did slip up on was, if you look at the solution section, if you go down to the solution header on that tutorial, you'll notice that I'm only putting together 7 32 by 32 objects there, and then I've put do this and make it into 1. What I'm trying to get at here is, that's efficient, but because of the size of it, it's only efficient by something like 0.1%. So what I meant to conclude on that free tutorial is if you have, say, I don't know, just say you've got an 800 by 600 frame and you've got really small objects like 16 by 16 pixels, and you can group them together for more efficiency. So basically what I'm trying to say in that tutorial, which I don't think I came across as good enough in, is that you should try and group as many objects together as possible as one image, but only if it's going to benefit you. So you don't have to do it. It's weird. Maybe I should do a video tutorial on it. Maybe I should do that. I think I'm going to do that, and maybe I'll use Vol Profiler to show you exactly what I mean in terms of numbers. And the final thing that I wanted to conclude this week's podcast on, I can't believe we've been going for 20 minutes already, is programming challenges. Someone mentioned in the Academy forums a couple of weeks ago doing some programming challenges, and I think that is a really good idea. In fact, I think it's that good, I'm going to start the first programming challenge today. I've been weighing up in my head, do I do it weekly, do I do it fortnightly, or do I do it monthly? I'm not sure at the moment. So what I'm going to do is, if you check out the ClickFusion Academy later on, in the Academy Hub, there'll be a link to a programming challenge which I'm going to set for everybody. Everybody's entitled to jump in on this programming challenge. I don't know what the challenge is going to be. I haven't thought about it yet. I'll think about that in the next hour or two. But yeah, the programming challenge should be quite a venture, and I think quite exciting for everybody to muck in and and do something a little bit more productive with the Academy. I've got something else that's in the pipeline as well for the Academy. It's going to be revealed in the next week or two, so definitely keep your eye out on the Academy. Try and visit it as much as you can, because I will be posting the links in the Academy Hub. It's going to be absolutely massive, and I know that everybody from beginners, intermediates and advanced users will love it. There's a couple of things which I'm working on in the background, so we'll get around to hopefully launching them in the next couple of weeks. That's why last week was a little bit quiet. I took a couple of days off to spend time with the kids, but I've also been working on something really, really good in the background that's going to benefit absolutely everybody, and some of this stuff is in conjunction with Clickteam as well, so hopefully I'll reveal more on them. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Don't forget to check out the ClickFusion Academy as much as you can this week, because there's going to be some things unfolding, and most of the new stuff I'll post to the Academy Hub. But thanks for checking out this podcast. I've been very excited to do this one. Next week I'll post another one up, but if you've any suggestions as to what I should cover topic wise, let me know in the comments. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next week.